Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. So, if you are a member of, if you've ever watched an Alexandria stream prior, I don't go on time. I don't go live on time. I refuse. I won't do it. However, I'm usually not this late, but we were waiting for Derri, and Derri never showed up. You'll see that we have a notice from her, um, 10 minutes ago or 9 minutes ago that says she was nearly here, and she is not. So she will join when she arrives. We will allow her to join. Anyway, welcome, Library of Alexandria. I'm Alan, an increasingly grumpier Alan, as my days tick closer to my inexorable um, old age. But with me, I have Evie from She Was Only Evie, and Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and we will hopefully have Derri from Derri's Read It Before join us as well. So you should follow them. Link to their channels are in the description. We're going to be talking about Daughter of the Empire, book one of the. Well, now I'm sad that I don't my MMPB is in the other room. I would rep that if I could, but it is not here. It's in the other room, and I'll grab it if I go to refresh my coffee or something. This is by Janny Wurts and Raymond Feist, and I had not read anything by Janny Wurts prior, and I had read something by Raymond Feist before, which is Magician's Apprentice, and I have DNF'd it twice over the course of my lifetime. I have never been able to not find it just incredibly boring. So, yeah, I haven't gone through it yet. I know you haven't. I know you've read it. But it's boring. But again, the last time I tried was like 20 years ago. It's been a long time. So anyway, this is the first book of the third read along. We've had two successful read alongs. The third one, people enjoyed also, at least this first book. So I'm so excited. So Rogue, reading this book actually made me want to go back and read Magician's Apprentice, which is good for Feist. At any rate, I enjoyed this book, and we'll talk about it momentarily. But first, I want to let Evie and Andrew give some non-spoiler, just overall thoughts of the book. Just your overall opinion on the book before we start delving into spoilers and just like more specific thoughts. You can start, Evie, because yours is the most negative opinion.
I mean, I didn't hate the book. Anyway,
Are you going to say something negative about it? Then you have the more negative opinion than Andrew.
touche. So yeah, I too have read nothing by Janny Wurts, but I also have never read anything by Raymond D. Feist. So, I went into this knowing nothing about Rift War, knowing nothing about their writing styles, and I was pleasantly surprised with how compulsively readable the prose is. I just could not put it down. This thing is what,
No,
500 pages, something
400
like
something.
that. Yeah, at least my edition's a little over 500, and I just flew through this like crazy. Um, it's it's funny. It's like stuff that shouldn't work for me. Where it's, I don't want to say that it's like surface level, but like, I don't know. It's just, I can't put my finger on the thing that shouldn't have worked for me, but it worked for me at the same time. Um, it's, yeah, whatever. Anyways, long story short, I enjoyed it. The things that I was frustrated about it, I simultaneously, like, it made it appealing to me and intriguing until the last like 10-20%. So yeah, George has made an appearance. I'm sure Max will make an appearance as well, so because it's a stream.
Derri's getting closer.
You were on my sprints. Oh, but you weren't on video, so maybe you weren't where you can be somewhere on video. I don't know. No one knows where you are, Derri.
She's in New Zealand.
No, getting closer from what? Like I don't know. Like, I don't know your starting point, so I don't know. Whatever. Just join us when you're here. Andrew, your thoughts?
So, a little bit of background. I have read Rift War. I like it enough to have 2 special editions of Magician. And I currently have a toddler getting in trouble upstairs. So I loved Rift War. This is my 4th Janny Wurts book because I read Cycle of Fire before this. And I really enjoyed her writing in Cycle of Fire. It was a little bit more digestible, but this is a little bit more elevated, and I thought Janny Wurts knocked it out of the park. I thought Mara was amazing. I thought she was a very compelling character. I liked the political maneuvering, which is something that usually doesn't work for me. And I liked a kind of a classic and slightly refreshing take on a strong female character. I thought that was really compelling because instead of being, I have big muscles and I can scrap with the men, she kind of goes and does it a different way. She uses her mind, she uses her wiles, she uses her social status, and I really liked all of those elements and how she utilized them to kind of save her family house.
Yeah.
All right, Derri. So
Hey.
Can't hear you, Derri. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. You're on mute. You're on mute.
There you go. No, you're no longer on mute now. Yeah, so I will add before Derri gets into her,
you moved on. Your turn's done, Evie. Go ahead. You better be glad I'm eating my taco.
You're not hangry anymore. I sent you a
no, you just because otherwise I would look. I'm saving. The reason I haven't talked yet is because I'm eating.
One of the other things that I obviously forgot to mention is that for a book that was written in the 80s, I think it was first published in 87. It still holds up in, like, it actually reads very modern in comparison. Like, I had very low bars because my experience with the 80s fantasy was Dragonlance Chronicles. And Andrew, you know that experience. It doesn't hold up after, 20 years or whatever. So I was... It feels like a bridge to... It feels like a bridge to the bridge of modern fantasy, where Robin Hobb and George R. R. Martin are like that bridge between classic and modern fantasy. Daughter of the Empire feels like the bridge to that bridge. So, which I very much enjoyed.
It's a lot of bridges.
So, it is a lot of bridges.
Yeah.
So I, for me, it read like it was written in the 90s, which is fun, but not nearly as boring as most books written in the 90s. Like now, trying to read fantasy that was written in the 90s, I'm just like, why is this so boring? But I liked it. It reminds me a lot of part of my attachment to it is, one, it's very Japanese. In fact, the parts I like the least, well, there's one part I like the least, but the other parts I like the least are any association with fantasy or midkemia. In fact, I wish it was not related to the Rift War, and I wish there weren't Thrakreen in this freaking book, because I'm like, okay, that's cool. What if we did a Japanese political, like, Shogun-esque book instead of having mantis people and a rift where that's for the next book. But and it's not that I didn't
Grace of Kings, Alan.
What?
Dandelion Dynasty. That's what
I'm not reading it. I'm not reading Dandelion Dynasty.
Yeah, but if you ask the author says it's an American fantasy and it's not Chinese at all.
Whatever. Authors don't know what they're talking about. You heard it here first. So it does remind me a lot of not Shogun, but like I love the Japanese aesthetic, but it reminds me a lot of Augustus because her ability to accomplish her job is based on the premise of people underestimating her because she's a woman, where Augustus's rise to power was the beginning of it was based on people treating him like a child. And I love that. I love really intelligent characters being underestimated because of their race or their age or their gender. And so I liked that. I liked that a lot. And the chojo by the end I thought were cool, but literally so Derri, you can't spoil anything for next book or the book after it, like ever. I'm just going to assume that they serve a purpose in the series, because they don't in this one. Like they don't, like it is literally a setup thing in this book. So yeah, there's a part in the middle I don't like, but the payoff was good, so I retroactively forgive it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I really liked Mara, and I liked, like, I had read that people didn't like the side characters, or maybe it's in the next book that people don't like the side characters, but I liked them. I like Papaweo. I like Anakasi. He's my favorite. Always love the Spy Master character. I don't know. I liked it. I did not like it. I was surprised at where the plot went in this book, because I thought it would take I thought it would take longer for certain plot threads to be resolved than they were. I was like, oh, that seems like a book 3 thing that should happen. Why is it done in this book?
I think the trilogy is set up as like 3 separate conflicts throughout different stages of her life.
Yeah,
as I understand.
Yeah, but this other guy seems dumb compared to the
Jim.
Okay, keep it to daughter.
Sure.
And
Anyway,
yeah.
so Derri's actually read the series multiple times. So Derri is going
times.
to, without spoiling anything, because then I won't read them.
Hey, look, I'm good at non-spoilers for stuff I've read lots of times.
How she enjoyed Daughter on this reread.
I think where we end, there's a character at the end who kind of becomes a non-issue, if I remember correctly, in Rift War. Like his story is resolved in Rift War. So I don't know if that's going to be analyzed in the trilogy, but there is some crossover, because it's not taking place at exactly the same time. Daughter takes place, I think, during Magician's Master, or the second half.
My issue is the more it's connected to Rift War, the less I'm going to like it, because I haven't read Rift War, and if I'm missing something that I think is important, I'm going to be irritated.
Look,
and that's my fault for not having read Rift War.
You don't need to have read the Rift War books. I stand by it. I will die on that hill. You don't need to have read it.
All right, Derri, what's your thoughts on Daughter?
I love it. I'm with AP. I'm a huge fan of this story, and I've been reading and rereading for a long time. And she's the main character in this. Mara is possibly one of the most intelligent protagonists that you're ever going to meet. She's very, very clever, and she's clever in a very quiet way, in that she waits until she knows what she's doing before trying anything. You actually see her taking the time to learn things before trying to get involved.
Sometimes she makes a plan because it's the only plan she can do, and she's like,
absolutely.
Hopefully, do something. By the time this comes out, I'll have figured something out."
Yeah,
I like what about buying time.
Yeah, it's the idea of doing something rather than being just frozen in fear.
Yeah,
that's right. And she's really good at it, as you say, at buying time. It's like, I don't need to do anything definitive, but I do need to keep something open for myself. And she's really good at that. And I love it. I like the fact that her supporting characters, as you said, Alan, they're actually really good. And they fit the culture really well, in that you see where their loyalties are very clearly on their sleeve for a lot of it. And you see where they feel where they're being held back by their traditions and the routines of their lives, and how that works within the little family group that she sort of gives herself. And that allowance for, we have to behave these ways, we have to act these ways in public. Behind the scenes, while we still have to remain in our roles and we still have to maintain a lot of these positional appearances, we can soften some of those lines. And because she's able to do that and build these relationships with real strength, we see her ability to think outside the box. And I love it. I love it so much. And we see it so early in the story when she does go and attract the new queen to bring her hive to her lands. And we see it when
even earlier than that when
warriors.
She makes a very early mistake in the book. And she then uses the rules, and she goes, well, what if I soften this line a little bit, and I can still make up for my mistake while maintaining honor.
Yeah. And it's that I'm going to go with the spirit/letter of the law and not break it, but I will manipulate it so I'm not breaking the law, the rule, the tradition, the thing, and
Loved
I'm
it.
allowing a bit of wiggle room for myself.
So that's why I
So
always
good.
like kind of Japanese inspired stuff like that, because it adds an extra layer to the political maneuvering, which is what I already like political maneuvering in books, but I like that there's this external system of honor that you have that kind of puts people in check so that everyone
Yes.
can't just run rampant. So it's about how do you exploit that system? Like how do you obtain advantage over people while still keeping that system in play? Like just look at, guys, we're gonna talk about spoilers. Like nobody's here. You should read the book. Okay, hold on. Let's finish like non-spoiler thoughts. You should go read this book. Fantastic political maneuvering. Great female character. Really, really great protagonist. I love Mara. Yeah,
This quickly became one of my favorite books of all time, if not my favorite.
it's
I
fantastic.
can't wait to reread it.
Whoa. Andrew, you proclaimed this was your favorite book of all time. Either it is or
I
it
can
could be one of them.
elaborate and say it's one of, if
Sorry,
not
Anita.
my favorite.
You should read it though. Keep
It's
reading.
so
Get
good.
past the part. Derri, she's where I was like not super
Yeah.
enjoying it right now.
And I've given her the same information.
Yeah.
Basically, there's a
keep reading
plan.
it.
The
Just keep reading
payoff is worth
Yeah,
it.
just keep reading
Keep going.
So I love.
I loved everything.
Anyone who's watched my channel for any length of time knows that I love intelligent characters that are actually intelligent. And I'm not sitting here and told how smart Mara is. I'm not.
she
I
shows you.
don't think they tell me how smart Mara is once. Instead, I just get to see how smart she is, which I love.
Yeah.
But just look at how Minwanabe is going to exploit the system. Like he's going to stay within the lines of like, I can't attack Mara
Openly.
in my house, right? But there's going to be some random thief that comes in the night, and she
Have we
just
moved to spoilers, by the way?
Yeah, for sure. And
Okay,
she's just going to happen to die or fall off the balcony or whatever, and then it's not going to be my fault. I can maintain honor, but I still get rid of her, et cetera, et cetera.
And
So I
everyone
love
still knows
replacing
that
the
I did
pegs
it.
on the railing,
So I
Yeah.
get
so that they're ready to
the
break.
kudos.
So I love that extra layer,
Mm.
because then an author has to get smart on how you're like, you can't just like, I hate liars in books bother me like liars in real life do, because I despise when villains in books make a deal and then say, oh, the person's supposed to die during the deal, and then they come back and they don't, and then the person doesn't keep their word. It's like, that's so not interesting, like even a little bit. So I like that people have to keep their word through all this stuff. It just makes it harder. Like it just like if you're a comedian, you can say the F-bomb every other word, and you can talk about nothing but like sex and poop. But can you be funny without doing that? So I do like seeing, because then I'm kept guessing, like, okay,
How
are
can
we
she
getting
keep
out of
this?
this?
Yeah.
And so that's what I really like about
What I
how
loved is a lot of it is
Evie
she
got
makes a plan, like you mentioned earlier, and then it's basically just like crossing her fingers, just like, please work.
Yeah. And it's very much, her plan has to be soft enough to allow for change, and yet firm enough that she actually has a goal that she's working toward, and be able to take in the changes and nuances that occur between that first thought of, I'm going to try and do this, and factor everything new that comes to her as she gets closer to that goal. And watching her navigate that is so compelling. And as Alan said, she does it in a way that she keeps her integrity intact. She's doing it with honesty. She's doing it with, integrity. She's true to her word, and she looks very closely at what she's asking of people. So, okay, we see her win a promise of a vote, but she gives them look, I'm not going to ask you to dishonor your house. I'm not going to ask you to breach vows with anybody else, but you do owe me a vote. And in giving those people those protections, they know they can give her that vote in security that, no, she's not going to take advantage of that, even though we know that vote ultimately is, it has to, by definition, it's going to help her. But she's now got this reputation of integrity because she's allowing everybody else to keep theirs. And I love her. She's fantastic.
Yeah, I like Mara.
I love that whole scene where she's just like, oh, don't court me, and I'm not quite ready, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt bad for what's
I
that
felt
guy's name?
bad for him, but I was like, dude, you played yourself.
What's that guy's name?
I don't
Bruley.
remember his name.
Not Bunto
Bruley it's Bruley of the Kehitara.
Yeah.
Bruley.
Yeah.
Poor
Yeah.
Bruley. Like, spent too much money.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
And she does try and soften that blow toward the end. She's like, he's just a victim, you know, and I've played him. And she feels bad that she's played him. And I like that she feels bad that she played him. And then
she had the letter that his brother was dead.
Yeah.
And
before she won the vote.
What she wanted.
That's cold right there. Like,
Yeah.
I do like
but she recognizes it was cold.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I like that Mara.
hurt.
I like that Mara is willing to do the hard thing when she hangs the guards who got in the squabble, the new guard versus the old guard. Like, she hangs them. And that was my first like shocking moment where I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, why did the author not try to find a way out? But she's like, okay.
Well, she did.
I mean,
she did, but Mara, staying true to the character, Mara couldn't find a way out of it. And basically, when everybody was looking at her saying, you have no choice, she made the hard call.
Kaioki gives her that warning where you could break this, but there's repercussions you're not thinking about right now. And you've got to make the decision right now. So you've got to do this way.
So she didn't have time. So she didn't have time to think. And we see Anakase warns her because she says something without thinking a little later and is like, hey, that was probably not the best thing you could have said. So I like that Mara is not as good off the cuff as she is when she has time to think about it. It just creates a more nuanced protagonist.
Because she is young, you know.
She's only like 17
she's
or
really
18
young.
by the end of the book.
Emotional. She's a young woman who's been literally just thrown into it, and she is not only having to think on her feet, she has the weight of so many lives on her that even though the house has been pretty much wiped out, that's only the soldiers and the house people that we're aware of. By the time you get to the end of the book, you're aware that her estates are massive. We're talking thousands of slaves, thousands of servants, and all of them need her to stay alive or they're screwed.
Yeah.
And she feels the weight of that. And she's really young and she gets emotional and she gets worked up, and you see it in the way she just gets that little bit snappy with the courtesan in the townhouse, where she's like, we don't need to keep all of Bruni's Puntakapi's trash. And she's, you know, and that's a very female emotional response to, I really don't like everything about you.
Yeah.
And whereas Arakase is like, you may have just made a really dangerous enemy there.
Yeah. So. Evie, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, the going back to the scene with the, her having to kill the guards because of the squabble. I actually didn't take that as a fault, like failure or whatever. I actually thought it was pretty genius, like, because she's simultaneously honoring the traditions of what is required, but also uniting the old guard with the new by putting them at the same level. And I thought that was really, really wonderful.
Sure, but she would have preferred to find a way to do that without having to kill good men.
That's right.
And that's what I mean by she didn't have time. Like, she might have tried to find a solution that satisfied everybody. Now it turns out that this one worked really well. The freaking courtesan, like, I loved the lack of like sexy time there was in this book. But like every time the courtesan's on there, all of a sudden, like I get we're looking at her bosoms. Like, I get it. Like, move on. Like, let's move it along. Every time she's on
in defense, what she's doing when she's on the page is she is trying to seduce.
Do you think I forgot how she did it from the last time? That's what I'm saying. Like, no, I get what
Andrew's saying. And that's her power. That's her only power.
Yeah.
This is an incredibly misogynist society, and she's been put into a role where literally this is her only weapon.
You guys haven't.
So she's going to use it.
You haven't defended the repetitiveness yet. Like,
so
every time there's a battle, a soldier can't use his sword.
I mean, sure he can, but like,
Yeah, this is
You
her
know what?
weapon.
In
So
all political
every-
debate, they can't debate because it just gets too
Yeah,
repetitive.
it's the same thing
you're
every
right,
time.
because those are the same things. Saying different words to argue an issue is the same as showing your
You're
same
still arguing
boobs
and using
when
your
you're trying to
arsenal and
seduce
tools.
someone. What's
Okay.
the difference? Explain to me the difference between her seducing one guy versus the other guy. There isn't one. They're the same. That's what I'm saying.
So the soldier in a battle has to use his sword in every battle.
Sure, and it gets boring if you see it too much.
Yeah, and Tiani's only weapon is her body, which you see
I
her
didn't think
use.
she was on the page all that often.
And I didn't think it was overdone. I thought it was heavy-handed enough that you recognize that it is a weapon that is her only weapon that she uses.
Sure.
Rather than feeling, oh, she could have done something else. She literally couldn't. This is all she has. So that's what she's going to use. And there are women throughout the series where when they do have something they can use, you see them using it because they have so few tools. And Mara knows that she is in an exceptional position being a woman and also being a ruling lady. And she does have to be reminded sometimes that, yes, you're a woman, but you're still a ruling lady. You're still allowed to behave that way because, sorry, Evie.
I'm just waiting for my, like, I want to, okay. This is the crux of my frustrations. So the same things that I was frustrated about are actually the things that compelled me to read. So the prose is obviously very compelling, like I said before, but normally things that would frustrate me are the kind of more surface level. There's a lot of like what is seemingly convenient things happening. However, for the majority of the book, because we're only getting everything from Mara's perspective, and even we're, as readers, we're actually withheld stuff from Mara's perspective, but it worked in a really cool way because of just everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
But literally, as soon as we get a narrative shift to the courtesan, or the whatever her name was, I can't remember. Starts with T, maybe? I don't know.
Tiani, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Literally, it was literally jarring for me, and I'm like,
Yes.
wait, why are like?
She's a completely different type of person. She doesn't.
No, I'm talking from a narrative perspective. We've gotten no other perspectives up until this point. We're at like what 80%, 75% or whatever.
That's where she meets the advisor dressed like disguised as a merchant, right? That's when
Schumacher shows up. Yeah.
And then then we get the other scenes, the sexy time scenes of her literally giving a guard a blowjob. Sorry, Alan. I
don't remember that.
She puts her head in his
It's
lap.
very much inferred.
It's very inferred that's what she does. But she's also, again, using it as a weapon to try and get her to go assassinate somebody.
Okay, can I finish my griping? I just want to get this out while I can. Okay, so also, again, considering I know this was written in the 80s, like, I could give it a pass, but it's still frustrating. This idea that Mara and Tiani are like these opposing forces. Mara is the virtuous, like, pure one, especially with the scene with Bruley, you said?
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names. And so Tiani is this, like, ultra sex bomb, like, and it's supposed to be
okay, because I don't see them as being in opposition. I've always seen them as this is the possibilities of womanhood, and that they're not necessarily given to you as being in opposition as in terms of character, but in terms of potential possibilities available to women. And at this point of the story, I agree. It is a jarring shift. It is. I mean, absolutely. I will give you that 100%. It's true. It is jarring. And I think possibly now, this much later in her writing career, Janny Wurts would have done that differently, or Raymond, whichever wrote that particular piece, they would have done that perhaps a little differently. I think their attempt to give you that side of that political situation and scheme could have been done differently. And hey, that's just what it is. I mean, this is like a 40-year-old book almost. It's 35 years. It's a long time ago. And we're still learning how to do some of these things. As you said earlier, Evie, it is a bridge from that really classic fantasy that just kind of told you what was happening. So I'm more than happy to forgive that, because what it gives me is so incredibly satisfying when you see Mara in the Minwanabi estate. She knows that they're going to try and kill her in a way that doesn't show directly to the Minwanabi. And you don't know where that's coming from, but there's so much tension around that they've come away and gone, this is the direction it's likely to come from. So now you're not quite as tense, but you're still like, okay, this is happening. And now we've got two different forces trying to kill Mara, because you've got the Minwanabi coming at her in the way he's planned to, and you've got Tiani coming at you. And you know at this point she's rogue. So you don't know if she's going to try and keep Minwanabi honor or not. And that situation is so just wonderful to watch. And then you get to a point where all of Mara's scheming comes to nothing. They're at a stalemate because her first advisor is at the same social level as his strike leader, force commander. So their words balance each other out. Nobody knows who's at fault.
Yes, they do. The wizards.
And that's the moment where suddenly the wizards being present has meaning, because you're like, oh, okay, this is how we're going to get out of it. Yeah. And even then there's tension, because you're like, this could still go badly, because she can't provide the proof that is being asked for. And it is just a bluff. And even though it's true, she can't prove it. So right up until the moments where it's all sort of falls in her favor, it still could go either way. And I really thought that was clever.
So I don't have a problem with the structure. I just don't like Tiani. So Andrew, you speak up in defense of Tiani, since you like her.
Me?
I assumed you were going to defend her.
No, I'm not. I hated Tiani.
Me
but
too. She sucks.
The thing is, I'm actually more agreeing with Derri and kind of trying to respond to Evie.
Go ahead.
A little bit on them being opposing forces. I don't see them. I think Tiani saw herself as an opposing force, while Mara never really recognized it. And because it is Asian inspired, and in this world, women are second-class citizens. So the fact that Mara has found herself as head of household is incredibly rare. She was about to take her vows and basically become fantasy nun. She was 15 minutes away, like, from taking a vow of celibacy and joining a church, everything. Mm-hmm. And then she becomes head of house. And I think her mind and everything that she does is very calculating, while Tiani's very reactionary. She is somebody who has essentially slept her way up the ladder and gets an inflated sense of herself. She thinks she's more important and she has more power than what she actually does, which ultimately leads to her downfall. She makes a critical mistake by being spies for multiple people and betraying too many people and letting her emotions run wild. So I don't see them as opposing forces. I see kind of Mara up here while just being, it's like the Chihuahua, like trying to bite your ankle down here. That's how I see Tiani. Like, yes. It's an excited Chihuahua that's probably going to hump your leg a little too much, and then is going to bark at you while it's doing it.
Yeah.
That's basically Tiani.
So, Sal, I completely agree that
I do as well.
If there had been more pages to smooth the Tiani chapters, like more perspective from her, I think I would have had a much better experience, and like it would have been less jarring, and I would have understood it more, because again, up to that point, it's all Mara. It's all Mara. And
if we'd seen more of the spying angle,
contextualized. She's sleeping with a married man. She's a spy. And then we get to see, once we do get her POV, we kind of get to know that there's some trauma back there, but also that she's more than willing to sleep with multiple men to just do and get whatever she thinks she deserves or needs or wants to have happen. So I think most of what was lost in translation is, it's a lot of contextualized. We're very aware she's not a good person.
Yeah. But I do agree. I would have liked to have seen more of her that wasn't that in the moment using her only weapon. I would have really liked to see that she did have a brain. I would have liked to see how she became a spy and the elements of the spying nature of her relationships with everybody, rather than what she's doing to gain the knowledge. And that, I think, would have eased it considerably. However,
I think that would have impacted the
driven.
political machinations of the book.
But
though.
again, that's right. Then you've got to weigh up what is the story here. And the story is Mara. So, like I said, I mean, in hindsight, I'm sure both authors would have wanted to do that a little differently, because it is jarring. 100%, Evie, you're right. It is jarring. For myself,
I've read too many books lately
simply,
that do that just throw in a random POV 50% into the book. So I'm used to it now. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, so
I mean, I forgive it because I know it so well.
yeah, so I will I will just say that because of that the jarringness of it, it just spotlighted the frustrations that I had, that I was like, I was still able to enjoy the story because of the frustrations. The same things that were frustrating me were making me enjoy it up to that point. But then you have this jarring thing that's like, oh crap. And I wasn't able to like overlook stuff anymore, if that makes sense. But on the flip side, to totally change scenes, subjects.
No. I don't
want to be a Debbie Downer here.
I know, but I have not weighed in on this yet. Like, we're not gonna. We're not gonna leap somewhere else, because we spent an inordinate amount of time on my least favorite part of the book. Like, literally, like post bunto, really post Bruley is my like. I liked that part the least. Like, leading up to the destruction of bunto copy was my favorite part. Like,
chapter 10 was amazing.
Like, I hate bunto. Like, the chapters with bunto are awful, but the payoff for that's some good stuff. Does it rely on some real good luck? Sure. Don't care. Yeah. Don't care. Like, if it's awesome, I will overlook any amount of convenience. Don't care. Oh my gosh, I was so happy. The Tiani thing, like, Tiani's fine. Like, I mean, the most interesting thing about Tiani is the fact that the Lord of the Anasati. No, the Lord of the Anasati is not sleeping with her, but using her instead, her different talents. That was the most interesting thing about Tiani, and then we never saw that ever. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'm with y'all. Like, I would have liked to see that more than just like, whatever. I would have. I mean, I didn't need Tiani as a rogue agent, but it was. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I love the fall of Bunto Copy. Like, and AP's right. Hold on. Chapter
Yeah, exactly. It's literally a question of when it happened. Sure. And
But I mean, I'm not. I like the POV shift didn't bother me. Like, I've read a bunch of different stuff. Like, I mean, I think there weren't.
That's becoming more common where they just throw in a random POV.
Forgotten Realms books did that all the time. They're like, hey, what about this wizard from Zental Keep? I'm like, who is this guy? But yes, like, okay. So what's the warlord's name? Who cares? The warlord.
Mecho.
There you go. Mecho. It sounds like a luchador. The ruin. Like, I was actively not enjoying myself during the bunto chapters.
It's hard to read. It is hard to read.
It is not just because but because I'm just like, what is your plan? And then, obviously she wants to have a kid. I'm like, okay, cool. But like, what is your plan, Mara? I didn't know where we were going. So I felt very kind of at sea with what we were doing. And I didn't think, like, the unpleasantness of bunto, and it felt like she's giving up so much ground that we got pre-bunto. Like, she gained so much ground, and then it just seems like we've lost all of it. And I don't know where she's going, and just the watching bunto be unpleasant, which she's supposed to be, obviously, and just messing up the estate, which she's supposed to be, obviously. I'm just like, this better be good. Like, because it better be good, because otherwise,
and I'm over here going, "Oh, it's good, it's good."
I'm not going to be able to get over how much I dislike these chapters. But the
payoff
way that bunto hangs himself.
Oh yeah, I do think that what gets overlooked is that Arakasi got it immediately when he comes back. He's been gone, and she says to him, the Lord isn't here to swear you to the Natami.
Yeah.
You have to go to his townhouse and use the code words. And
And then
he
gets
looks at
punched.
her,
He gets punched.
but he looks at her and he's like, okay. He's like, I get it. I know what you're doing. And even though everybody around her that's there while she's doing this plotting still has no clue, although at this point Nicoya's got a pretty good idea, it's taken them a long time to almost sort of know what she's doing.
Yeah.
Arakasi knows in one conversation.
And this is
And,
such a good point by
love
AP
him.
too. Like she's grasped the first handhold
Yes.
and come up with a better plan later. Like this is it. And you almost just like Mara, almost feel bad for Bunto Copy. Like his first time, he's like, "You think I'm stupid? Like my dad, my brothers think I'm stupid. Everyone thinks I'm stupid. Well, I'm not stupid. It's like part of that.
And then he does something stupid.
I mean, part of it's a little Kevin Kline from Fish Called Wanda. Like,
Yes, it is a little.
yeah.
But then he does have moments where you think, actually, there were some things about him, and Mara comes to understand it as well, in that if his own family had treated him with respect,
Yeah.
he would have been actually a bit of a force to be reckoned with.
But then he does the right thing. He could
And he
have
does the-
easily.
yeah.
He could have gone
Because
off the
there
reservation
was
and she'd be done.
that thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she knew the risk. She knew that was the risk. But-
Evie,
You know,
sorry. Now
yeah.
you can gush on what you like instead of being negative.
Well, no, I mean, basically, ditto Alan, what Alan just said. Yeah, no, I'm like, what the heck is happening? Like, going back to purposely keeping things from the reader, even though we're in Mara's perspective. So even Mara as a character and as a narrator is keeping things from the reader.
Mhm.
And it was infuriating, but dang, chapter 10 was a payoff. It was...
Well, I don't think she's necessarily keeping it from the reader. I think she's literally making it piece by piece.
Oh, yeah. It's all still fluid.
Like,
You know?
she knows she has to get pregnant.
No,
She knows that will elicit a trip from the father, but she also knows that Bunto hates paperwork. And so she's like, if I give him a bunch of paperwork to piss him off.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
What is
Just
it?
going to bother him.
What's the major domo's name?
Jikan.
Jikan. I love how Jikan is
Jikan's
just like,
wonderful.
I need you to sign these papers. Like the paperwork scheme was probably my favorite in the whole book. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and he's just like,
And Mara's like,
care
have you got
anymore.
anything for Bunto to
Stop coming here.
sign?
Tell
And
my
Tara's
wife
like,
to sign
yeah.
it. Leave me alone. Like I love it. And he
Yeah.
is so excited when he realizes what Mara's planning. He's like, I'm so
I
excited.
totally have things for him to sign.
Don't worry, I have plenty of things he needs to take a look at. Like, I love it. I love it. And
Yes.
yeah, you're absolutely right, AP. Like, I love the fact that he is not one note. He is so unpleasant, but like you said, Derri, like a lot of it's his family. It's a society he lives in. He's the third son. He's not there's not expected anything from the third son. But I do like the fact that we do see that he's good in battle, and that the soldiers, despite having extraordinary distaste for Bunto,
Yeah.
they still respect him as a warrior.
Yeah.
He's an excellent warrior. He just doesn't know how to channel anything other than he's the son of a noble, and he has all that privilege, but none of the ability. Like, he has no moral compass to blunt just like, I'm going to do what I want type thing.
And yet he still has enough honor, and genuine honor, not just structural honor, but genuine honor to take his own life by the blade to make up for his shame. And I think that is maybe one of the most poignant moments, because Bunto looks at his wife and he's like, you did this.
And she doesn't deny it. She's like,
She doesn't. She's like, yeah,
And
that's on me.
She does feel remorse despite
She
how
really
bad
does.
he treated. She was just like, I did what I had to do.
She did. And
And-
she recognizes
maybe
as
if he'd
well,
been more
if she'd had
pleasant-
more time, it could have gone differently.
he acknowledges, he's like, you know what? You're a good player of the game. People underestimated you, and that's dumb. And by doing that, when the Lord of the Anasati demands, and she's like, oh no, I couldn't possibly tell you, it's too. And she's like, you're gonna tell me what he said. And that that scene where the Lord of the Anasazi hears everything, and our Mecho standing right there.
Right there.
Like I'm getting goosebumps. That is so well written. Like that
Yeah.
scene is so brilliant to
It
where
really is.
he is screwed. And
Yep.
Bunto's dead. He knows at that moment his son's dead. If he
Yep.
doesn't play it careful, he's dead too. Like he's got to hope that Bunto does the right thing so that he can reclaim any amount of honor of this. And he's trapped, and she's trapped him. She's
Yeah.
trapped what's his name? The Lord of the Anasazi?
Jiro.
Jiro. Yeah, she's trapped him as well into being, if not allies.
Actually, at this point, Takuma of the Anasazi.
Yeah,
is
sorry,
the father.
Takuma.
Yeah.
Not Jiro's the oldest son. You're right.
It's the middle son.
Who's the oldest son?
Derri,
Halesto.
stop with the spoilers.
Halesto. Hey, it was excellent.
Anyway, Takuma, I don't care. I don't care who's the head of whatever. He's old, so doesn't matter.
I loved him though, because he had a grudging respect for Mara, because he was just like, I'm so mad at you right now. My son is
But
dead.
well played.
But well played.
Yes, AP.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
good game.
And-
Good game.
But you also have that moment where he tries to play on the fact that she's a young woman and comes in and goes, here is the tutor to teach my grandson. And she's like, no, I'm the lady now. And I will be until my son comes of age. You have no power here. And that moment where he's like, damn it. Where he was just like, I'm going to try and see if I can do this. And she just...
I love the
stonewalls
scene
him
with
completely.
Takuma at the end where he's like, we are never going to like each other, but I do think we respect each other a little bit. And we both love my grandson.
Yes.
So well played, because I also hate Minwanabi's guts. That was great. Suck it, Minwanabi. He's a trash.
I love how they're on the barge and you just see it off in the distance. Jingu falling on his sword.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was so good. Where it's like, it's not even important to the narrative anymore.
It's
like,
not important
let's
now.
just kind
He's
of
not a
look over
problem.
our shoulder. Oh, they're walking away from the grounds now. Let's go to our party.
Yes, the fact
Yeah.
that they were there,
Oh, yeah.
that they're waiting because they all thought that she was going to bite it at the
And they would
Minwanabi.
need to defend Ayaki.
That was awesome. That was really cool. I like that. Yes, Evie.
So, I was just gonna say that I think it's interesting from a potentially plot perspective, series perspective, and also thematic perspective that Mara has no blood family left. She only has her army, her servants, her slaves to support her. And Bunto kills himself not for honor or anything like that. He does it for his son.
Yeah.
And also Takuma, that's the grandfather,
Yeah,
right?
that's the
Yeah. He's like, I'm doing this for my grandson. That's it. Like, so I'm wondering if as the trilogy goes on, if there's gonna that even more conflict and even more I guess lack of support from like the family honor. So like and everything about honor is based on your family. So
Yeah. And that's very much a core part
some of that
of the story, is that she is at the beginning, she's alone. She is the sole person of a Coma blood. That's it.
Yes.
If she dies, that entire piece of history goes. It's done. A Coma is gone.
I
Dust.
thought Jingu was going to last more than part of one book. Like, I was like, okay, all right. Well, I guess we did that pretty quickly.
But like, Jingu didn't get taken out. His retainers took him out.
I mean, sure. Yeah, I know.
His own
I mean,
lack of control over the people under him took him out, because he had a pretty good plan in place. Let's face it. It could well have worked, and it came very close to working.
I like how Amecha thinks it's all funny. He's just
I love that, isn't it?
Sucks to be that guy. Oh, played it bad, Jingu.
Well, even as that chapter 10 happens, when he's sat behind Takuma as he's hearing these words his son has said, and you can see Al Micho sitting there with a grin on his face, like, "Oh my God, this is great!
I'm so happy. This guy's about to die.
This is the best thing ever." And it is very much a look at all of these people fighting for the scraps from my table because I have all the power. They're just fighting over what's left. Look at them play. And yes, it is glorious to watch.
Well, okay, so the way the retainer thing is handled, I think is really good because we have Tiani, who I don't like, whatever. She goes rogue, fine. We know that's going to happen. But I love the fact that Shizuma comes and saves Mara, like protects her from Tiani. But
The moment he realizes.
But then he makes a count. I mean, he's not stupid. He makes... It's not a stupid decision. From his position, it's a good one because she's, again, he underestimates her. She's a girl. Let me kill her real quick, and we'll blame it on, because otherwise, I mean, he's screwed. If he doesn't kill her, they're screwed. Like, he's got to kill her because, and then Tiani, who is, everyone said is super loyal to the Minwanabi. So he has to do this. So I like that. Even Shizuma is not like, just completely cardboard. Like, he saves Mara to protect the Minwanabi, and then realizes, well, guess I'm going to go ahead and violate this thing to, again, try to save the Minwanabi. So really, he's a good retainer. He just is stupid in trusting Tiani.
Yeah, that's right. And again, it's that power thing. It's like that was her power, is that she could make men who were loyal and integral to the structure of a family make the wrong decisions, and that was her thing. And AP is exactly right here. By the end of the book, there are people now going, okay, she's dangerous. We need to watch her. She isn't now just a kid having beginner's luck.
Yeah, so now she's lost the Augustus
working
advantage.
Yeah. Now we know she's actually playing. And that's a risk. So you do go into book 2 with her on slightly different footing. So
we barely talked about one of my favorite characters.
Please.
Papa
Whale. I love Papa
isn't he wonderful?
He's amazing.
Papa is wonderful. Not only will I handle you, I will handle you with violence. Is my favorite line.
Oh, that's when he's like, if you disrespect. Yeah. If you, and they're like, oh, how dare you? He should die. And it's like, hey, look.
He handled me.
Yeah, look.
I'm already about to die.
He's like, dude.
I've already been condemned, so suck it. Suck it, dude.
Yeah, I love that moment.
And it's just that petty noble who isn't even a powerful noble. He's just like a hanger-on who's like,
I can bully you because of who you are.
Yeah.
And I loved Papa doing that.
That guy's a douchebag. I love Papa Whale. Papa Whale's great. I like
awesome.
Lujan. I love Lujan.
I love Lujan as well.
Lujan is awesome. I love that. I love the reformed bandit king kind of guy. So
I do wish I had felt more emotional weight with Papaweo's death, though. Like, there was
so much happening. You didn't really get a chance to grieve for Papa, which is a shame.
Well,
neither did Mara.
It's not even. It's not even that. It's just even the funeral scene. Like, I felt like I was supposed to, like, there was supposed to be weight there, and I was supposed to be emotionally invested, and I'm like, I love Papa Whale, but I feel nothing right now. So, like, I'm just like, can we get it over and done with?
I do think that was deliberate, and that this is how drastic this game is. You can't have that time to be human and take emotional time. You have to keep playing this game, or you're going to die.
I think she even mentions in her own mind, like, I have to wait to grieve.
Yeah, like, I can't be emotional right now.
I can't do this right now. I have to do it later. Yeah. And because we're in her POV, I think that translates to the reader as well.
I do think that was deliberate.
Because we're in Mara's POV, there is a level of detachment from the other characters. I mean, except for Tiani, we have a POV of her. But and I get it. I get it, Evie. Like, I was listening to it, and it happened super fast when I was listening to it. And I was like, oh.
Whoa.
But the thing is, like we knew he was going to die anyway. Like, he was already.
It's literally in the opening scenes.
In the
he's on borrowed time.
In the first chapter, he's marked for death.
Well, and it was a political thing as well, because when he's murdered, like, Mara's not in a good position to call out the guard captain for killing Papaweo.
No.
And so she has to let it slide. She has to let it slide because technically all she's found is somebody with a sword out that has blood on it. And
the thing is, that was a bigger deal than him dying. Like, that was a bigger, like, oof, than him dying, being like, oh, you just killed her, like, best bodyguard. And then, you know, she gets on Akasi, and I'm just like, well,
This could go
killed.
badly.
He's gonna get killed if he
Yeah.
attacks.
Yeah.
So,
Because I mean, Arakasi is my favorite of anyone that's not Mara. I love him so much. He's so good. And between him and Lujan, that moment in very early in her story where she recognizes the loophole of the Grey Warriors, where she's like, they're just men who.
how had anyone never considered, hey, why don't you come join my house?
tradition.
Yeah, because of this tradition and this honest, system. And
Culture will make
was
you do
able,
some dumb
without
stuff.
breaking.
Hey,
Yeah.
if we all three talk at once, I can't hear anybody.
Sorry.
That was weird. You all three spoke at the exact same time. I was like, whoa. It sounded like aliens.
Mhm. Well, I was just going to say that I think that the time, because we open with Mara in a religious establishment, we're being shown that she's going to look at the world in a very different way than people who don't have a faith of any kind. And I think this is what allows her in so many instances to see beyond the tradition and see the people behind it. And I think that led into that Grey Warriors situation where she does see them as people who just had their lord die and it wasn't their fault. And how can this be somehow impacting their honor to the point where they can't be part of another house? And I think that that's important to remember, that she does have faith quite strongly.
And
So.
to kind of add on to that, also, like, A, culture will make you do dumb stuff, like letting a whole group of warriors just be unaligned. But B, I mean, again, Alan, I know the Rift War part isn't your favorite, but essentially they're losing massive amounts of warriors and nobles to this war.
A war happening.
And they're not adapting.
No.
And so Mara comes along, and because she is of a noble house who happens to have lost family to this war, she's willing to try things a different way. And so that leads her to also adopt the Grey Warriors, because she has to.
Yeah, she has done. She has
She
37 warriors.
Let's call it the reserves. There are no reserves. Those were the reserves.
So I have a quick question. So when Bunto Kapi basically resigns his allegiance to his father's house and becomes an Akoma, was that a tradition, or was he breaking tradition to become the head of Akoma?
That was tradition. Because becoming consort would have done the same thing, even if he hadn't been husband, because you can't have divided loyalties. You have to have a very clear alignment to one family or the other. So the not revoking, but the freeing of somebody from house honor is always on the premise that they're going to be then sworn to another, because that is a process. It's something that happens, because you can't otherwise have marriages between
Can you
great
explain to me
houses.
what the difference would have been? Because Takuma wasn't willing to entertain his sons becoming her consort, but was totally fine with marriage. Why?
Because the consort had no power, but whereas a marriage would make
his
him
allegiance
the
would have changed. He just would have had no power.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Never mind. I understand now. Okay.
Yeah.
The allegiance changed.
And I thought that was great.
I got
it. And they were a warring house anyway. They were rival houses in open conflict.
Like everybody knew. Yeah. Because then, and she does say that the Anasati were the second most threatening house to her own. And that was one she could use and go, okay, well, I can make that powerless by forming a blood tie with them, which she gets with Ayaki. And so then she can focus on the Minwanabi.
And because the Akomas were a great house still technically, having an Anasati become an Akoma and then an air quotes Akoma and becoming leader of that house was seen as down the line, we can just merge the two.
Yeah. So the marriage was very much to Anasati advantage if it had gone differently. But it didn't.
Well, the Anasati were a level below. They were basically trying to climb the ladder to become one of the 5
But the Akoma aren't one of the 5 either. So the Anasati
Oh, I
and the
thought they were.
Akoma are one level below the
thought
5.
they were. I thought the
No.
Akoma were.
The Minwanabi are not.
The
not
Minwanabi are
Akoma
one of the big 5.
The Akoma are
but
like
not the Akoma.
they're like the number 1 house outside the 5.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They're in that tier just below. And
Got it. Yeah, so what I the reason that I asked is because I think it's a really interesting parallel between Bunto kind of, I'll just say, resigning his allegiances to his birth family and taking on the Akoma mantle. A parallel between that and the Grey Warriors, where he is Bunto Copy is gaining power by taking over this new house, whereas Mara previously took these Grey Warriors and gave them power by giving them the Akoma
a house allegiance.
Yeah. So,
but she never divulged where they came from.
Right.
Bunto.
And Bunto, because of the way he was, never thought to ask about the history of any of the warriors in the house.
Well, because that's an honor thing. You don't question it. You don't question it.
You just trust that they've come from family.
It would never have occurred to him to elevate bandits into
That's right. And I will touch on why you might have thought that the Akoma were one of the 5 houses, because Takuma does have a thought process about the fact that his grandchild might become a war chief of one of the 5 houses, and that the abeyance of the conflict between Anasati and the Akoma meant both were able to focus on the Minwanabi, who were one of the big 5. And a son of the Akoma would likely then would fill that gap in the Great 5 if they knocked out the Minwanabi. So all of these nuances are going on. And this is why it makes such a great political drama to read, because there is all of this gaining of power, gaining of station, and what that means in a much bigger picture.
So I'm going to segue.
It's one of my favorite politicals since Game of Thrones.
I'm going to segue and ask, are the other 2 books also political? Or am I just going to watch a stupid romance with a guy named...
I promised you before you began the trilogy that there was going to be a romance, that it would make you
Kevin
grumpy,
Allen,
it would make you grumpy, but that you would get a desert campaign in Offset, and you would get a war, and that
I just want the politics. I'll deal with Kevin if we still have the politics.
Very, very political.
Okay. All right. I'm trusting you, Derri. If I hate it, I'm coming after you.
You're not going to hate it. You're not going to hate it. You're going to love it, because that moment of keeping your vow, where you've said you're going to do something and having to find a way to fulfill that vow in a way that doesn't take you.
I'm excited. We're talking about Bruley.
We're not talking
Derri, if Alan does come from you, just take him to Hobbiton.
Yeah, I could.
He'll forget all about the Holy War.
No, I will.
I will take him to the park where they filmed half of Lord of the Rings. It's all good. But yeah.
By the way, as an aside, I just want to comment how much I laughed during this book. Like,
oh yes, there's some great humor in it.
It's great. So
there is some wonderful humor in it. Definitely.
So let me ask you: did Janny Wurts write this, and Feist just like guided based on like Rift War stuff?
I've heard a lot of different things. I've heard that Janny Wurts was in a reasonably big panel where she's talked about how they wrote the first one together, and she wrote the second, and he wrote the third. And I've spoken, I didn't know, that's not true. I commented in a live stream she did with Steve Talks Books, probably a couple of years ago now. And I asked, how did co-writing this trilogy work? And in that discussion, she said that Raymond Feist had the idea for this branch off trilogy, didn't have time to write it, gave her the beats, and left her to it. Nice. So how much involvement, I don't know.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, that pleases me about Janny Wurts. I've never read anything by her, and so that I like that. Because it is rare these days that I am surprised by a political book about like how it's going to work out. Like Parker does it sometimes, but
this is my shelf of Wurts.
Nice.
But it is. I was very pleased that so I was very pleased that some of it was surprising. Like I didn't know. Like I knew she was gonna kill Bunto. Like they say it eventually.
He had to die.
He had to. It was part of the plan, wasn't it?
But it's like, how is this gonna happen? Like
Yeah.
I thought she was going to have him die while he was out fighting. Like I thought, she's going to arrange an accident. No, so much better that the dude tells El
this is it.
Metro he can go sleep.
Is that would
might
be
have been her
contrary to her
original-
character, because of course she's honorable in her own way, and that she does have this integrity. She would never ask one of her warriors to kill their lord. I genuinely believe that she would just never ask that of them, because it would be a breach of their honor. And so she had to find a way that Bunto had to do it to himself. And she was just looking for ways for him to give her enough rope.
Look,
and he did.
Way better. He tells the warlord to go sit and poop. Way better.
I think her initial plan was
stream, but away from my cattle.
I think her initial plan was to take Bunto and point him at the Minwanabi and hope the Minwanabi would take care of the problem. And then once Tiani comes in, she sees other opportunities and she gets to know him a little bit better. And
she also couldn't start to do anything until she had a son. Because if she'd had a daughter, she would still have had to wait for a son. So she couldn't put any plans in place until she had a son who was healthy. So you see her just gathering knowledge about Bunto the whole time. What can I use with him? What is he going to give me in terms of weaknesses? And it turns out to be paperwork.
I love that he hates paperwork. I don't want to read it. I don't want to look at it anymore. Quit bothering me with this.
But again, in all of that time, for all of his awfulness as a husband, she does begin to see the value in him as a warrior. And you see her start to question, I could have done this differently.
She was maybe married a year.
I think it was a little over a year.
Just over a year.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Like I'm glad this was my first Wurts. I enjoyed this greatly.
I'm so pleased that you did.
Cycle of Fire is good as well.
Yeah. The only reason I hadn't gone into book 2 is because I don't like to during read-alongs. I don't like reading the second book before I talk about the first book, because I end up coloring what I'm talking about. So once I finish the book I'm reading, I'm going to go into Servant of the Empire. I'm perpetually basically a month behind on these read-alongs, but I tend to, it's not a full month, but I'm roughly a month behind on the read-along.
That's all right. We'll forgive you. And like I said, yes, there is a romance element, and yes, some of it. And I did warn you before you started that there would be a very saccharine romance, and it would drive you bonkers. But there is enough payoff, and it is going to add nuance to later things. It's all for a reason, I promise.
Well, Arliss, if AP's still here, he's read all of them, I think. So, he can toss some recommendations out as well on where.
He would absolutely be the best person, because I've only read this trilogy.
I've only read 4 books, but I did a video review on Stormwarden, and I loved Stormwarden. She does a lot of nuanced characters and stuff in there, but the prose is really digestible. Yeah, that's Cycle of Fire trilogy. But this is also a very easy place to start as well. If you go Wars of Light and Shadow, be prepared for incredibly purple prose. Take this times 4, and that's how purple it is. So I would start either with Daughter or Stormwarden, and then work your way through the catalog from there.
Read this book, Arliss. This one's good.
It's really good. It really is.
Read it.
The special edition for book 2 is coming out early next year. Master
Awesome. That is awesome. Because they're just wonderful stories. And I have reread it a lot, and there aren't as many books I've reread as often. Yes, everyone knows I've read Hob a million times. This comes pretty close. This and A Song of Ice and Fire I have read the most of any other story. And it's fantastic. And it's so rereadable.
Final thoughts, Evie.
Despite my frustrations, I will continue the series, but probably on my own terms.
Word.
So, wait, what?
Oh, I was just going to say that for all I'm saying to Alan, there's a saccharine romance that might drive you bonkers. For people who don't mind romance, it's actually really well done. So that's a really good romance.
I like well done romance as long as it's not icky.
No, it's not icky.
Girls have cuties.
Yeah. They do.
I just don't like spending page time on something that I would rather. I would rather see something else. Like, what if we did more political stuff and not?
Oh yes, and you will have moments of that. I guarantee you.
And here's the thing: I had hoped it was the one guy. I had hoped the romance was going to be with the one dude. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He begins with an H. What's his name? H
Hokanu.
something. Who?
Hokanu.
I love
Shinzo.
Hokanu. He's the only one that's nice. No, it's from some random dude from the Rift War from Midkemia named Kevin.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
but it plays into a lot of the things that can be really disturbing to some readers, and the blasé nature of the way slavery is treated becomes a big thing, and so it's important.
But he's from the Midkemia, which I don't care about.
It could be Dave.
And it could have been Dave.
Sal's saying I'm gonna love it, and Alan's gonna be super grumpy about it.
What?
Yeah.
Sal is saying I'll love it, and you'll be grumpy about it.
No, I just like.
But that's just that romance element that I
already
as I say,
Midkemia connection.
If you class Midkemia as simply another border on the same planet,
sure,
you'll be fine.
Why is his name Kevin?
Because it isn't Dave.
Why is your name Alan? Alan.
I'm not. Okay, guess what? I'm not in a fantasy book where people's names are Papaweo, Minwanabi, like Shizuma, like.
But it had to be blatantly different. That's the point. So, but that is the only. I promise, it's the only aspect of it that you're.
What about another fantasy name that isn't Kevin?
Well, it could be Kavan.
I would
Kaven.
And Dave isn't bad. Dave is way
honestly,
worse
Kevin,
than you're saying it.
I would probably attribute that to Feist.
Like Dave,
that's Feist thing.
Dave. Yeah.
Anyway.
However, it means that the other elements in the book you will really like, and there is a strong chance that you may enjoy the Rift War. But if you started Magician a couple of times in DNF, then don't worry about it. You don't need
like
to.
Pug. I think Pug is uninteresting for 100 pages.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And he is uninteresting
for 100 pages.
For 100 pages. But there is a point at which it gets very good.
Yeah.
So
having said that, it's still not
never got to meet Jimmy the Hand
as this trilogy. Jimmy the Hand is awesome.
I missed a character named Jimmy. Oh no. Evie,
Jimmy the Hand.
Okay.
I will also add that I am very interested, as a result of reading Daughter of the Empire, to read both.
You like Inkwell, Alan. Jimmy's a lot like Inkwell.
Hang on. What, Evie?
I'm very, very much interested in reading both Raymond E. Feist and Janny Wurts' solo stuff to see where
what came from
comes from, where my frustrations are, who I should blame, and
always blame Raymond.
Because blame is important.
I should blame. I like it.
Yeah. I enjoy Rift War. I've read that first trilogy of Rift War many times. I do like it. I think it's great. It's very traditional fantasy. But I do think that this trilogy is by far the best part of that entire created world. By far. So.
I'll get through it one day. Andrew, final thoughts.
Oh, I loved it. I liked getting more Rift War because Pug is very interesting and he's awesome. And Alan is wrong.
You didn't get Pug in this book, though.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
But I'm just defending Pug. I like Mara. Mara's probably one of the best characterizations and uses of political maneuvering I've ever read. And yeah, I thought this was stellar. 10 out of 10. Would definitely recommend.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah, everybody go read it. It was quite good. The next one is 200 pages longer than the first one, which I don't love, but if it's awesome, I'm okay with it. So we'll see. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Evie, thank you for not DNFing it. I appreciate that greatly.
Listen, I didn't want to set off another Emperor's Blade situation, so
it wasn't bad though. So even if you DNF'd it, it wasn't.
Yeah,
bad.
It's still a good book. It's still a really good book, and it's a great start to a trilogy. So
for sure, I agree. All right, so cool. Well, we will reconvene after we've read the second book. I might see if Josh wants to replace Evie in the next one.
Because I know he likes it.
He really likes the second one. So yeah, and all of you who read it, keep reading and join us. It's been quite fun. So yeah. stay tuned. It'll be in hold on, it'll be in September. The discussion will be in September. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to finish it before August, but we'll see. I got to finish this book I'm currently reading. All right. Stay tuned. AP, thank you for your insight. It was great.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, and I'm really excited I got to read it. So it was fun. All right, guys, have a great night, and follow all these people's channels. Their links in the description, and go read some Janny Wurts, because that's good stuff. I'm pleased that I discovered another author I really like. All right.
Yes.
Good night, guys.
Good night.